Hey guys, what's going on? This is Run It Once Essential Pro Pete Clarke, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about 3 reasons why you're probably a losing poker player. Most people are losing players. I don't mean to say that you personally suck at poker. Let's face it, it's a tough game these days, and the statistics strongly suggest that the audience I'm speaking to is mostly comprised by losing players. So don't take it personally. Instead, why not watch on and get better at the game? Here are 3 reasons that you're losing that you may not even know are reasons at all, and quick fixes for these widespread poker problems. First reason that you probably lose at poker is that you bet for bad reasons. As a coach, I teach aspiring players day in, day out, 5 or 6 days a week, 6 or 7 hours a day. I see the same bad reasons to bet or raise cited every time I ask a student why he's investing money into the pot. Poker's a game of investment, so let's make good ones and avoid bad ones. Here's how we do it. Here are some good reasons to make investments when we're checked to or are first to act, and here are good reasons to bet. Value. To increase the pot size with a hand that will have high equity when called. Very good, smiley face. If we can keep putting money into the pot and getting called by worse hands, we build a pot in which we have a lot of equity. That means we're going to win the pot very often at showdown. Therefore, we win money. We can clearly see how this reason is linked to our expected value. That's the hallmark of a good reason. We can see how it's linked to our long-term expectation in the hand. Good reason number 2, protection. To cause your opponent to fold worse hands than yours that hold reasonable equity. How does this benefit us? Well, if villain folds a hand that has 2 overcards to our small pair on the flop, we gain expected value, EV, by causing him to surrender the whole pot when, if we check and show down, he may be entitled to 18 to 24% of that pot. Protection is our friend. It makes us more money than we would make by checking, and if villain isn't going to bluff us too often anyway, it's mandatory to make him fold all those worse hands. Smiley face. Good job. Reason number 3, bluffing. Bluffing's not always excusable. You can't excuse a bad bluff by saying I was bluffing, but when you do think you can cause your opponent to fold enough better hands to make a bet profitable, guess what? You get another smiley face. Anything else is either a reiteration of these reasons or it's nonsense. Let's take some examples of nonsense. To find out where I'm at. Well, 2 problems with this. 1, you may not find out where you're at because you don't know how your opponent plays. Secondly, if you've already paid a fee for that information, what's that information actually getting you? It's almost too late. To represent the flush, straight, spade on the river, 2 pair, ace, king. You can only represent things if you know your opponent's going to believe that you have them. And even then, it may not be a useful hand you're actually making him fold. If it doesn't fit into the first 3 reasons, it's probably bad. To make him fold, again, what's he folding? Is he just folding worse hands? Would he bluff if we check to him and we could win additional money that way? There's more to this than just getting someone to fold. We have to think about how useful that fold equity is going to be. To keep up the betting lead. This is an illusion, it's all in your head. Initiative is not a real thing. A lot of people think that being the aggressor is all there is to poker, but actually, knowing when to check and slow down and pot control and catch bluffs is equally important. Because checking is weak. Well, of course checking is weak. It involves putting less money into the pot. This would be a very strange game if when you had a bad hand, you put more money into the pot, and when you had a bad hand, you put less, and when you had a good hand, you put less money into the pot. It doesn't work that way. Checking is supposed to be weak, and just because you've checked doesn't mean you always have to fold, or doesn't mean that checking is a worse play. Because of my ego. Needless to say, that's a pretty bad reason. Raw aggression without thought is not going to get you far in this game. Reason number 2 that you lose at poker you don't think statistically. In my line of work, I'm always asking students to explain their thinking. If I can hear their thought process first, I can fix it, I can give them feedback, and I can improve them as a player. When people don't think statistically, they're basically committing the cardinal poker sin. They're thinking in a way that's consistent with impulsive situations, emotional situations, and not statistical situations, which is basically what poker always is. An unstatistical thought may be, he'll never fold here. Note how it jumps to a very strong, bold conclusion. That's probably unrealistic. I put him on the flush draw. What about all the other hands that are consistent with his action? I checked because I hate getting raised. Here the student is only thinking about getting raised and not the frequency with which it will happen and how bad it actually is in EV. This is just a mere expression of attitude, and that is insufficient in a statistical game. I thought he'd raise that on the flop. Again, soul reading, making up reads where there are none. These are some of the biggest, most common ways that aspiring players fill an otherwise empty thought process. Let's get into some good statistical types of thought now. Turn raises are usually value heavy. Note how there's a frequency to this phrase. We're using the word usually to assign a probability, which is statistical thinking. This will help us. It's not too black and white, but it's also not too vague to be useful. The population folds a lot to overbets here. This is very useful. We're not saying they always fold. We won't be shocked when they call. We're not claiming to read minds. We are saying that we'll get more fold equity than we are supposed to have, perhaps theoretically, and making a big overbet in this spot, whatever it happens to be, is going to be really useful. Maybe it's when a king comes on the turn after the flop's been low. We think people don't call enough of their middle pairs there. It could be in a lot of situations that this is true, and it's going to be really useful, and again, this read is neither too specific nor too vague. Sets are a small part of his range. Looking at the hand that we're thinking about as a sum of the whole range and not just in isolation is a really important poker skill. And finally, I rarely expect to get raised in this spot. Look how much better that is than the one below, which is just an attitude about getting raised. Saying that you rarely expect to get raised is already a qualifier that states that getting raised is not so relevant because it happens rather infrequently. So even if getting raised is bad for our expected value, the benefits of betting may still outweigh the costs because getting raised does not happen often. The student has to think about how often things happen and not just what happens when they occur. The final reason that you lose at poker, among many others, is that you maximize your downswings. This is extremely common. Sometimes players who play well when running good but fall apart when running bad are referred to as glass cannons. When on offense, doing well, they blast everyone away, but as soon as things go wrong and they take the slightest hit, they shatter into 1,000 pieces. This is what a graph will look like for a poker player who maximizes his downswings. His upswings are nice, he can get on good heaters. Over a long period of hands, he has enough skill not to be a big loser, but because his downswings are so catastrophic, and every time things start going a little bit bad, they go from terrible to abysmal in a very short space of time, this poker player cannot hold it together consistently enough in the long term to be a winner. If he could only minimize his downswings, like this guy over here, he could book a solid winning month, 2 months, maybe even move up in stakes. Let's take a look at what happens when a player learns to control their downswings. Note that there are still downward spirals. We cannot avoid variance in this game. It's a necessary ingredient to being a poker player. But this is a player who probably takes some regular breaks, doesn't cram in too much volume when running bad, does some meditation, works on his mental game, does some reading and research into the mental game, and does many other things. We've got plenty of mental game content over on runatonce.com. So work on your downswings. Don't just maximize your profits, but minimize what you're going to lose. Some days it is your job to lose as little money as possible, and it's abundantly clear from the start of the session this is not going to be a good session. But if you zoom out and you look at the graph, what will happen if you actually put the effort into your mental game on the right here and compare that to the left-hand graph, which is what happens when a player is lazy with their mental game and gives in to the impulses to wallow in bad variance, it's huge. It's make or break. It really is. Guys, I hope those 3 reasons have helped you understand why you're not achieving your poker goals and why you're currently losing, assuming that you're losing. If you're a winner, maybe they can help you become a bigger winner. For more content from me, you can obviously check out my videos on runatonce.com. I'm an essential pro there. Alternatively, check out my website, carrotcorner.com. There you'll find poker books. I've written 2 of them, Grounder's Manual and 100 Hands, the sequel. I provide free ranges, a modern approach to 3-betting. Just grab it on my website, you don't have to pay a penny. Podcasts, I've got 75 episodes of podcasts that I've made with guests and with myself. Some strategic, some mental games, some just general poker banter. Articles, I've got a lot of free content on there, technical game, mental game, all sorts of stuff, check it out. Solver work, my latest product, Pile vs Population, it's all about how to use a solver to beat the games and to crush the regulars and exploit them. And finally, coaching, check out my coaching page for rates. I work with hundreds of poker players every year. I teach poker 4 or 5 hours a day, 5-6 days a week. I've put a lot of work into it. I'm an experienced coach. Check out my coaching page on my website. I hope this video makes you a stronger player. Until next time, good luck at the table. See you soon.